Captain Alex Mercer sat at the controls of his ship, the Starlight Wanderer staring at the blinking console. The once pristine craft was now a battered vessel after a recent run-in with a pirate ship. The damage wasn't too serious, but it was enough to knock out a few critical systems. The navigation was down, the shields were barely functional, and there was an eerie silence in the cabin. Alex sighed, running a hand through his short, dark hair. His ship had drifted for days, stranded in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, a place where no one ever came. He had been out here hunting for ancient ruins on a distant planet, but his mission had failed. Now all he had was an old, broken-down ship and the endless void of space to stare at. He'd given up on finding anything of value, or even surviving for much longer if he didn't fix the Wanderer soon. Then, his console beeped. It wasn't the usual kind of alert. This was something different. Alex frowned, glancing at the screen. A faint signal was coming from a nearby space station. The station was old, abandoned even, but it was close, just within range. Without much thought, Alex keyed in the coordinates. What else was he going to do? Drift endlessly in space? At least he'd have a chance to gather some parts, maybe get some temporary repairs. As he neared the station, the rusted exterior came into view, bathed in the dim light of the distant star. It seemed like the kind of place you'd expect to find a graveyard of lost ships, a relic of a time long past. He docked his ship carefully, the metal scraping slightly as he made contact with the station. With a sigh of relief, Alex grabbed his toolkit and prepared to step into the unknown. The station was eerily silent as he moved through the dark hallways. It was clear no one had been here for a long time. The air was stale and the walls were covered in grime. Every step echoed, a reminder of the station's abandonment. But as Alex moved deeper into the structure, something unusual caught his attention. An energy source, faint but present. He followed the signal down a long corridor, eventually arriving at a massive chamber. In the center of the room stood a figure, illuminated by the faint glow of an ancient console. The figure was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. She was tall and slender, her skin a pale silver blue, long hair that shimmered like starlight cascaded down her back, and her eyes, bright, glowing with an otherworldly light, met his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Alex froze. She was an alien. There was no mistaking it. She didn't speak immediately, just observed him with a calm, steady gaze. For a moment, the silence between them stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Alex wasn't sure if she was friendly or a threat. But she didn't make any move to attack. "Are you lost?" Her voice was soft, like a distant melody. It was strange, yet oddly soothing. Alex blinked, taken aback. I'm just here to make some repairs. My ship's damaged and I thought I might find some parts around here." The alien woman tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as if she were studying him. She didn't seem concerned by his presence, nor did she seem surprised. "I am Lyra," she said finally, her voice gentle but firm. "I have been waiting for someone like you." "Someone like me?" Alex asked, his curiosity piqued. "I don't think you're expecting a human." Lyra's lips curled into a small smile. "Not just any human. You, Alex Mercer, the one who wanders the stars alone." Alex's heart skipped a beat. How did she know his name? He hadn't told her. He didn't even know how she could have found out. He stepped back, instinctively putting a hand on the hilt of his blaster. "You've been watching me?" he asked, his voice tense. "Not exactly watching," Lyra replied, her eyes softening. "But I've been waiting. Waiting for someone who might understand what I seek. And I believe you are the one." Alex wasn't sure what to make of this. The last thing he needed was to get involved with some strange alien who claimed to know him. But there was something in her eyes, something desperate yet hopeful. It made him pause. "What do you want?" he asked cautiously. Lyra's expression shifted. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "I offer you a chance, Alex Mercer. A chance to change the fate of the galaxy." He narrowed his eyes. "A chance? For what?" "I am the last of my kind," she said, her voice carrying an ancient sadness. "My people once ruled an empire across the stars, a mighty race with knowledge and power far beyond your understanding. But we were destroyed, wiped out, and now I am the only one left. But I have found a way to bring us back, to restore my civilization to its former glory." Alex blinked, surprised by the gravity of her words. "Wait, you're saying you can bring your people back?" Like, revive them? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. There is a place deep in the galaxy where the last remnants of my people's greatest achievement lie hidden. A device capable of resurrecting them. It is ancient and dangerous, but it is the key to everything. And I need someone to help me retrieve it. Alex was stunned. This sounded like something straight out of an old space opera, but the sincerity in her eyes, the loneliness that seemed to radiate from her, made it hard for him to dismiss her words entirely. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't offering any riches. She was offering hope. And you need me to help you? Alex asked more to himself than to her. Yes, Lyra said simply. I need you because you are different. You are a human. You are resilient, adaptable, and resourceful. These are qualities I lack. And they are the key to finding what I need. Alex felt a pang of doubt. He'd never been one to get involved in something so dangerous, especially not without knowing the full consequences. But something about Lyra's presence called to him. He was a man who had lost so much, his family, his friends, and here was an alien, a being from a long-dead civilization, offering him a chance to help restore what had been lost. It was a tempting offer. Too tempting to refuse. What's the catch? He asked, his voice steady but skeptical. There is no catch, Lyra replied, though there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something that Alex couldn't quite read. But time is running out. The device is hidden on a world far beyond the reach of most, and there are others who seek it. They would use it for less noble purposes. Alex took a deep breath. He was no stranger to danger, but this felt different. He was staring at the unknown. The offer she made seemed simple enough. Help her, and in return, he would gain something greater than anything he'd ever imagined. But there was something in her words, something in the way she spoke about her people. That tugged at him. He could see the desperation in her eyes, the loneliness that had followed her through the stars. She wasn't just asking for help. She was asking for connection, for a chance to undo a mistake, a tragedy that had torn her world apart. It wasn't an easy decision, but Alex knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away from this. I'll help you, he said finally. Lyra's eyes brightened, a glimmer of hope returning to her face. You will? You have no idea how much this means to me, Alex. You will not regret it. Alex wasn't sure if that was true, but as he stared at her, he realized that he had already made his choice. Whatever lay ahead, he wasn't going to face it alone. And as they walked toward the door of the abandoned station, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this strange, alien woman was leading him into something far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Alex followed Lyra out of the ancient station, his boots clanging against the metal floor. The silence around them felt different now, less eerie, as if the station was holding its breath. The shadows seemed to retreat into the corners, leaving them in a strange, quiet calm. They reached the docking bay, where Alex's ship, the Starlight Wanderer, awaited. He had grown used to its worn, battered exterior, but now it felt more like a lifeline. Lyra looked up at the ship, her glowing eyes studying it with curiosity. Your ship looks well used, she remarked, her voice calm yet curious. Yeah, it's been through some rough patches, Alex replied, giving a half smile. But it gets me where I need to go. He led her inside and they went to the main cabin. As Alex began adjusting the ship's systems to prepare for takeoff, Lyra remained silent, observing. It was clear she wasn't accustomed to human technology. While her eyes were full of knowledge and ancient wisdom, her curiosity about even the most mundane aspects of his ship made her seem almost like a child. You really trust me? Lyra asked after a long pause, her voice softer than usual. Alex looked up from the controls. What do you mean? I know you've had doubts, she said, glancing at him. I can see it. You've wondered why you're helping me, why you're involved in this at all. You've been through loss and loneliness, but that's not the same as what I've been through. Alex felt his stomach tighten. He didn't like the idea of someone reading him so easily, but there was no denying the truth in her words. He was alone in this vast galaxy, too. His family was gone, and the only thing he had left was the thrill of space exploration. But now he found himself caught up in something far bigger than he could ever have imagined. I don't know, he admitted, glancing back at the stars through the viewport. Maybe it's because I can't turn my back on someone who's asking for help. Or maybe it's because I can't stand the idea of being alone any longer. Lyra nodded, her gaze distant. I know what you mean. But this This is about more than just loneliness. It's about my people. My entire race is gone, Alex, and the only way to bring them back is to find what remains of our civilization's greatest treasure. Alex didn't reply. Instead, he focused on the task at hand. The ship was ready to go, but Lyra's words lingered in his mind. He wasn't sure if he was doing the right thing, but for the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose again. After a few minutes, the ship's engines roared to life and they left the space station behind. The stars stretched out in front of them, a cold and endless void. As Alex steered the ship toward the unknown, he couldn't help but feel a strange bond with Lyra. She was different from anyone he had ever met. She wasn't human, yet there was something human in her, something that made him feel less alone. Hours passed as they journeyed deeper into the galaxy. The ship hummed along, cutting through the blackness like a silver needle. Lyra, however, didn't seem to mind the silence. She spent her time studying the star maps, tracing lines and symbols that meant nothing to Alex. Eventually, she spoke again. "We're getting close." Alex glanced at the display. The coordinates she had entered were leading them toward a distant planet, a world that was not marked on any of his maps. It was in the middle of nowhere, far from any trade routes or populated systems, the kind of place no one would ever think to visit. "Where are we going?" Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. "A world called Vanith," Lyra replied, her voice soft, almost reverent. "It's a forgotten place, but it holds the key to everything. The device I told you about, it's hidden there. We need to find it before anyone else does." "Anyone else?" Alex asked, his suspicion rising. "Who else is looking for this device?" Lyra hesitated for a moment. "There are others. A faction. They want the technology for themselves to control the galaxy. They would use it for war, for conquest. If they get their hands on it, nothing will stop them." Alex frowned. The idea of some shadowy group trying to seize ancient alien technology was not something he wanted to get involved with. "How do you know they'll find it before we do?" "I don't," Lyra replied, her eyes darkening. "But we have to try. I've spent years searching for it. This is our last chance." The urgency in her voice was unmistakable. Alex could sense that this mission was more than just a treasure hunt for Lyra. It was her last hope for a future, not just for her people, but for herself as well. The loneliness she carried with her, the weight of her race's extinction, seemed to fuel her determination. Alex could see that in her, and despite the danger, he felt a sense of responsibility to help her. As the hours passed, the ship approached the planet. Vaneth was nothing like the lush, vibrant worlds Alex had visited before. The planet's surface was barren, cracked, and covered in dark red dust. The sky above was filled with swirling storms and lightning arced across the atmosphere. It looked inhospitable, like a place where life had long since faded. The ship touched down on the planet's surface, its engines whirring as it landed with a soft thud. The planet was eerily quiet, save for the occasional rumble of distant thunder. Alex could feel the weight of the silence press down on him as he unstrapped himself from his seat. Lyra was already up, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We'll need to find shelter. The device is hidden in a temple, deep beneath the surface. We'll need to go underground to reach it." Alex followed her as they stepped out of the ship, the hot wind tugging at his clothes. The surface of Vanith felt like an oven, and every step kicked up clouds of red dust. The desolate landscape stretched out in all directions. No signs of life, only rocks and twisted structures buried in the dirt. "This place is empty," Alex said, his voice tinged with unease. "It's been abandoned for millennia," Lyra replied, her voice steady. "But the temple is still intact. We just have to find the entrance." They walked for hours, the heat and dust grinding against their skin. The journey was grueling, but Alex kept his eyes on the goal. He had committed himself to this mission, to helping Lyra, and he wasn't going to back out now. Eventually, they came across a large structure, partially buried in the sand. The stone was smooth, worn by time, but still strong. There was an entrance hidden behind a crumbling pillar. Lyra approached the entrance with reverence, as if she were standing in front of something sacred. "This is it," she whispered, looking at Alex. "This is the entrance to the temple. Inside lies the key to everything." Alex nodded, gripping his blaster tightly. They weren't alone on this planet. He could feel it. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as they stepped forward, ready to enter the darkness ahead. But as they moved deeper into the temple's depths, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The air grew colder and the shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should have. Something was waiting, and Alex wasn't sure if it was the device Lyra had spoken of or something far worse. The air grew thicker as Alex and Lyra descended deeper into the temple. The stone walls, smooth yet cracked, stretched high above them, and strange markings decorated the surfaces, symbols Alex couldn't decipher. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. It was as if the very stone was alive, holding on to the secrets of a long-dead civilization. "We're close," Lyra said softly, her glowing eyes scanning the surroundings. She moved with purpose, her every step measured, as though she had walked this path 1,000 times before. Alex followed, trying to ignore the creeping feeling that something wasn't right. The silence of the temple was oppressive, as if it had been abandoned not just by people but by time itself. The farther they walked, the more Alex felt the weight of history pressing on him. This was a place that had seen the rise and fall of an entire species, a species that had reached for the stars, only to destroy itself. Finally, they arrived at the heart of the temple, a vast chamber with towering columns that seemed to stretch into the dark sky above. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a strange crystalline object. It pulsed with a faint light, its surface smooth and iridescent like a fragment of the stars themselves. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice full of awe and reverence. She stepped toward the pedestal, her eyes never leaving the crystal. The heart of Vanieth. The key to everything. Alex hesitated. He had expected a grand treasure, something more tangible, more obvious. But this? It seemed so simple, so small. His instincts told him there was more to this than met the eye. Lyra reached for the crystal, her fingers trembling as they hovered just above it. "This is our salvation, Alex," she said, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and desperation. "With this, I can bring my people back. I can restore what was lost." Alex's mind raced. He had believed Lyra's story. He had wanted to believe it. But something about this moment didn't sit right with him. The object before them felt wrong, like it had been waiting for something, or someone. And now that Lyra was so close, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. "Lyra, wait," Alex said, his voice firm. She froze, her hand still hovering over the crystal. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone suddenly sharp as if the weight of his words had struck her. "I don't know," Alex admitted, taking a step closer. "But I've been thinking. I don't know if I can trust this. We don't know what this thing does. What if it's not what you think it is?" Lyra's expression hardened, her glowing eyes narrowing. "I know what it is. I've spent years searching for it. This crystal will restore my people, Alex. You have to trust me." "I want to," Alex said, his voice softer now. "But everything about this place feels wrong. There's something off about it. I think we should be careful." Lyra's face softened for a moment, her gaze flickering with something like sadness. She lowered her hand from the crystal, but the tension in the room didn't ease. "I've already lost everything, Alex. My people are gone. All I have left is this, please." Alex sighed, looking down at the floor. The words she spoke were full of pain, genuine pain. He understood what it was like to lose everything, to feel the weight of the past on your shoulders. But there was something more to this, something Alex couldn't ignore. "I know how you feel," he said quietly, his voice full of empathy. "But I don't want you to make the same mistake my people did. Chasing something we don't fully understand. We've always been so quick to want more, to take more without thinking of the cost." Lyra stared at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. Finally she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "I can't live in this emptiness anymore, Alex. I can't live with the pain of knowing that my people are gone forever. I need this, please." The desperation in her voice was undeniable. But Alex knew he had to make a choice. His gut told him that the path they were on wasn't just dangerous. It was a path that could lead to even greater destruction. And if he didn't do something now, Lyra would be lost. Alex stepped forward, closer to the pedestal. "Lyra, I'm not saying we should give up. But we need to think this through. We need to understand what this thing really is before we use it." For a moment, the two stood there in silence. Lyra seemed torn, her fingers twitching as though she was fighting an inner battle. But at last, she withdrew her hand from the crystal. Her expression was one of frustration and sorrow, but there was a new determination in her eyes. "You're right," she said finally, her voice low. "We can't rush this. I'll figure it out, but we don't have much time. Others will come for it." Alex felt a wave of relief wash over him, but the danger wasn't gone. The crystal seemed to hum with a strange energy, as though it were waiting for something or someone. As much as Alex wanted to believe Lyra's cause was just, something about this place still felt wrong. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber, followed by a tremor beneath their feet. The ground shook and Alex's heart raced. He spun toward Lyra, his eyes wide with panic. "What was that?" he asked, his voice tight. Lyra's face had gone pale, her eyes wide in shock. "It's them. The others. They've found us." Before Alex could react, the walls of the temple began to rumble. A blast of energy shot through the air, sending a shockwave that threw both of them off their feet. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling and the faint glow of the crystal flickered wildly. "What's happening?" Alex shouted, trying to regain his balance. "They're activating it," Lyra gasped, her face contorted in fear. "They're trying to take it!" From deep within the temple, Alex could hear the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the stone halls. It was clear, whatever was coming, it was powerful. The faction Lyra had warned him about was here. Alex quickly scrambled to his feet, grabbing Lyra's arm. "We have to go, now!" They didn't wait. Without another word, they sprinted through the temple's corridors, their footsteps echoing loudly in the empty space. Behind them, the temple shook with a force that made the walls tremble, and the sound of the unknown faction's soldiers grew louder. They were closing in. As they ran, Alex's mind raced. Who were these people? What were they after? And why was the temple suddenly coming to life? They reached the entrance, but the path was blocked. The ground cracked open, and a massive stone door slammed shut in front of them, trapping them inside. The once still air was now thick with the presence of something ancient and dangerous. The crystal, the temple. It was all part of something far bigger than Alex could have ever imagined. And now, there was no turning back. The temple was no longer silent. The rumbling that had shaken the ground only moments ago had subsided, but the tension in the air was palpable. Alex and Lyra stood frozen before the massive stone door, their eyes wide in disbelief. The faint, eerie glow of the crystal in the center of the chamber pulsed, as if it were alive, waiting, watching. "We need to get out of here," Alex said urgently, his hand gripping his blaster as he scanned the room for another exit. But there was none. The stone door was solid and unyielding, and the only other way out was the dark, winding corridors they had just fled from. Lyra's eyes, usually calm and composed, were wide with fear. "They're here. The faction. They've found us." Alex didn't need to ask who they were, he knew. The ones Lyra had warned him about. The ones who sought the crystal. The power, the very thing that could change the fate of the galaxy. The device in the center of the chamber was no ordinary artifact. Alex could feel it now, the power it held. It wasn't just about bringing back her people. It was something far darker, far more dangerous. "We can't let them get to it," Lyra said, her voice shaky but determined. She looked at Alex, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "If they take it, everything will be lost. My people's legacy will be twisted. We can't let them use it for conquest." Alex nodded grimly. He didn't need to be told what the faction would do with such power. They would use it to control, to destroy. And with the power to resurrect entire civilizations, they would be unstoppable. "We'll stop them," Alex said, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "But we need to act fast." Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the temple. Footsteps that weren't theirs. Alex's heart raced. The soldiers were getting closer, and there was no time to waste. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the crystal. "We need to destroy it, Lyra. It's the only way." Lyra stopped, her body tense. "No," she cried, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. This is my people's last hope. If we destroy it, we're condemning them forever." Alex's grip tightened, and he could feel her trembling in his grasp. "Lyra, you have to understand. This thing isn't just a hope. It's a weapon. And in the wrong hands, it could destroy everything." "I know what it is," Lyra snapped, her voice sharp. She pulled away from him, her eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and desperation. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything. My people, my family, my history, it's all gone. This is all I have left. I can't let it be destroyed." Alex took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. He understood her pain more than she could know. He had lost everything too. His family, his friends, his purpose. But he had learned painfully that sometimes the things we fight for can destroy us if we don't stop and think. "Lyra," he said softly, his voice gentle but firm, "I understand more than you think. But if we don't stop this, we're not just risking your people's future. We're risking the entire galaxy. This is too powerful, too dangerous." For a moment there was nothing but silence. Lyra's gaze shifted from Alex to the crystal. She looked at it as if it were the last lifeline she had. The tears in her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She couldn't, not now. Alex stepped closer to her. "You don't have to do this alone, Lyra. Let's find another way. Let's find something that doesn't destroy everything else." Lyra shook her head slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "I've already lost everything, Alex. What's one more thing?" It was then that the first of the soldiers appeared at the entrance of the chamber. Their figures were silhouetted by the light from the corridor, armored and armed with weapons that hummed with energy. Their leader stepped forward, a tall man with cold, calculating eyes. "Step aside," he said, his voice flat and commanding. "We've come for what belongs to us." Alex's hand tightened around his blaster. He wasn't going to let them take it. He wasn't going to let anyone use the power of this device for their own gain. Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between Alex and the soldiers. Her back straightened, her expression hardening. "This is mine," she said, her voice filled with defiance. "You will not take it." The leader of the faction smiled coldly. "You are the last of your kind. You think you can stop us?" "I am the last of my kind," Lyra said, her voice rising with determination. "But I'm not alone anymore." Alex felt a surge of energy, a rush of resolve. He had to believe that they were not alone in this fight, that they could stand together against those who would use power for destruction. He stepped forward beside Lyra, his hand on his blaster. "You'll have to go through us." The soldiers hesitated, but their leader didn't. With a quick motion, he signaled and the soldiers advanced, their weapons drawn. Lyra held her ground, but Alex could see the fear in her eyes. They weren't just up against soldiers. They were up against a force that had already claimed so much. The stakes had never been higher. "Alex," Lyra said, her voice urgent, "we have to destroy it. We can't let them take it." He nodded, but he knew there was no time for subtlety. With a swift motion, he reached for his blaster and fired. The blast hit the pedestal, causing a spark of light to explode from the crystal. The power surged, crackling in the air. The soldiers stumbled back, momentarily disoriented, but their leader didn't flinch. "Do you think you can stop us with that?" The leader sneered. "You're playing with forces you don't understand." But Alex didn't stop. He fired again, aiming for the heart of the crystal. The device shattered with a brilliant flash of light, filling the chamber with an intense, blinding glow. For a moment, everything went still. The energy in the air was thick, like the world itself had paused. Then the light began to fade. The crystal was gone. The pedestal was shattered, and the temple's walls began to crumble. It was as if the very foundation of the place had been tied to the device. And now, with it destroyed, the temple itself was collapsing. Alex grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to get out now!" The faction soldiers were recovering, their weapons ready. But it didn't matter anymore. The temple was collapsing around them. They had no choice but to run. As they sprinted down the dark corridors, the ground beneath their feet shook. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and the sound of the temple's collapse echoed in their ears. They ran faster, the distant sound of the soldiers' footsteps growing fainter. The exit was near, just ahead. Finally, they burst into the open air, the dusty red skies of Vanith stretching out before them. The temple was collapsing behind them, the sound of its destruction filling the air. Alex and Lyra stood for a moment, catching their breath, looking back at the crumbling ruins. It was over. The device was gone, and with it, the danger had passed. Lyra looked at Alex, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "You did it. You stopped them." Alex nodded, his heart heavy. "I didn't stop them alone." Together, they turned and walked away from the ruins, knowing that they had made a choice that had saved the galaxy from a power no one should ever possess. And for the first time in a long while, Alex didn't feel alone.